As someone who has spent years analyzing every detail of Tolkien's work, I have to admit that this topic is one of the most controversial in all of Middle-earth lore. The idea that Tom Bombadil had a secret meeting with the Witch King of Angmar sounds like fan fiction, doesn't it? But here's the thing. There's actually textual evidence that suggests Tom Bombadil and the Witch King did encounter each other, and that encounter might explain some of the strangest mysteries in The Lord of the Rings. So did they really meet? What happened between them? And why does Tolkien hint at this without ever making it explicit? That's what we'll investigate in this video. Before we dive into the evidence, I need to be completely honest with you. Tolkien never explicitly describes a meeting between Tom Bombadil and the Witch King. There is no chapter where they sit down and have a conversation. What we have instead are strange hints, curious absences, and geographical coincidences that have led many Tolkien scholars to believe something significant happened between these two beings. This is detective work, piecing together clues from across Tolkien's writings. Let's start with what we know for certain. Tom Bombadil lives in the Old Forest, near the Barrow Downs. The Barrow Downs are ancient burial mounds from the Kingdom of Cardolan, one of the 3 realms that made up Arnor after it split apart. Here's the crucial detail. The Witch King of Angmar conquered and destroyed Cardolan, and he specifically defiled the Barrow Downs by sending evil spirits, Barrow Wights, to inhabit the tombs. Tolkien writes in the appendices, "Evil things came out of Angmar and Rudor, and took the Barrow Downs, and made dwelling there in the old mounds of Cardolan." So the Witch King didn't just conquer this land, he personally corrupted it with his own dark servants. The Barrow Wights weren't natural creatures. They were wights sent by the Witch King himself to defile the graves and terrorize anyone who came near. This happened around the year 1409 of the Third Age, about 1,600 years before the events of The Lord of the Rings. Now here's where it gets interesting. Tom Bombadil lives right next to these Barrow Downs. He's been there since before the Hobbits, before the Dunedain, before the Witch King, before practically anyone. Yet despite the Witch King sending his servants to corrupt the area, literally on Tom's doorstep, Tom seems completely unafraid, and even has power over these evil spirits. When the hobbits are captured by a Barrow Wight, Tom rescues them with nothing more than a song. Here's what Tolkien writes in The Fellowship of the Ring. "Get out, you old wight. Vanish in the sunlight. Shrivel like the cold mist. Like the winds go wailing out into the barren lands far beyond the mountains. Come never here again. Leave your barrow empty. Come never here again. Leave your barrow empty." And the Barrow Wight obeys. It flees. A creature sent by the Witch King himself, one of the most powerful evil spirits in Middle-earth, runs away from Tom Bombadil's command, like a scolded child. This is extraordinary. Even Gandalf admits he's not sure he could have saved the hobbits from the Barrow Wight, yet Tom does it effortlessly. This raises an obvious question. When the Witch King sent his servants into Tom's territory, did Tom do nothing? Did he just allow the Witch King to corrupt the land around his home without protest? That doesn't match what we know about Tom. He's the master of his territory. Nothing happens in his domain without his knowledge, and to some extent, his permission. Here's where the speculation begins, but it's grounded in the text. Many scholars believe that when the Witch King came to the Barrow Downs, Tom Bombadil confronted him. Not with violence. Tom doesn't work that way, but with his presence and his power. And something happened in that confrontation that established boundaries. Think about it this way. The Witch King conquered all of Cardolan. He destroyed kingdoms, killed thousands, spread terror across the entire north. But he never touched Tom's land. The old forest where Tom lives remains untouched. The whites are confined to the Barrow Downs. They don't enter Tom's domain. Even during the height of Angmar's power, even when the Witch King was at his strongest, Tom's little territory remained an island of safety. Why would the Witch King, who showed no mercy to anyone else, leave Tom alone? The only logical answer is that he tried something and it didn't work. Either he couldn't affect Tom, or he did encounter Tom and realized that this was a being he couldn't conquer or corrupt. There's another piece of evidence that's easy to miss. When Gandalf is discussing the ring at the Council of Elrond, someone suggests giving it to Tom Bombadil for safekeeping. Gandalf responds with something revealing. He is a strange creature, but maybe I should have summoned him to our council. But I would not do so. He would not have come. Why wouldn't Tom come? Gandalf could summon the greatest kings and warriors of Middle-earth, but Tom Bombadil wouldn't answer. This suggests Tom has made a deliberate choice to limit his involvement in the wider world. He stays in his boundaries and doesn't interfere beyond them. But those boundaries had to be established somehow, and the most likely time would be when the Witch King threatened his land. Now, let's consider what such a meeting might have looked like. We know from the books that Tom is immune to the ring's power. When he puts it on, nothing happens. He doesn't become invisible. The ring has no hold on him whatsoever. If the ring itself, containing the power of Sauron, can't affect Tom, then the Witch King certainly couldn't harm him. But here's the crucial point. Tom also wouldn't harm the Witch King. That's not how Tom operates. He doesn't fight evil through destruction. He simply exists in such a way that evil cannot touch him. So a meeting between Tom and the Witch King wouldn't be a battle. It would be more like the Witch King encountering a wall he couldn't breach, a force he couldn't understand or overcome. Imagine the scene. The Witch King, having just conquered Cardolan and sent his servants into the Barrow Downs, approaches the old forest. Perhaps he senses something strange there, some power he doesn't recognize. He enters Tom's domain, and there he encounters Tom Bombadil, ancient, powerful, and completely unbothered by the Witch King's presence. The Witch King tries to intimidate him. Nothing. He tries to command him. Tom laughs. He tries to use his power, the fear that makes men's hearts stop. Tom starts singing. For the first time in perhaps thousands of years, the Witch King encounters someone who is utterly immune to everything he is and everything he can do. What would the Witch King do in that situation? He's intelligent. He's strategic. He's survived for thousands of years by knowing when to fight and when to retreat, and he would realize immediately that Tom Bombadil is something beyond his understanding, something he cannot conquer, cannot corrupt, and cannot kill. So he makes a choice. He leaves Tom alone. He establishes his whites in the barrows, but he doesn't push further into the old forest. It's not a defeat exactly, more of a mutual acknowledgement. The Witch King gets the Barrow Downs. Tom keeps his forest. Neither interferes with the other. This would explain several mysteries. First, why does Tom have power over the Barrow Whites if he wasn't involved in their arrival? Second, why does such a small area remain untouched when everything around it was conquered? Third, why does Tom seem to know about the wider evils of the world, but choose not to engage with them? There's also a thematic reason why Tolkien might have hinted at this without making it explicit. Tom Bombadil represents something outside the normal rules of Middle-earth. He's not good in the sense of actively fighting evil. He's simply himself, existing in perfect contentment. The Witch King represents ultimate evil, the corruption and domination of all life. A meeting between them would be a meeting between two extremes, two forces that can't really interact because they operate on completely different principles. The Witch King wants power. Tom has no interest in power. The Witch King serves Sauron. Tom serves no one. The Witch King fears death and became a wraith to escape it. Tom was never alive in the way we understand life, so death is meaningless to him. They're incompatible on a fundamental level. Some might argue that if Tom was so powerful, he should have helped fight Sauron. But that misunderstands Tom's nature. During the Council of Elrond, Gandalf explains why giving the ring to Tom wouldn't work. He is his own master, but he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he is withdrawn into a little land, within bounds that he has set. Within bounds that he has set. This is key. Tom has chosen his boundaries deliberately. He protects what's his, but doesn't interfere beyond that. This sounds exactly like the result of an agreement or an understanding, possibly reached when the Witch King arrived at his doorstep. There's one more detail worth mentioning. When Tom rescues the hobbits from the Barrow-wight, he gives them swords from the Barrow, blades from Westernessa that were made specifically to fight the Witch King's forces. One of these swords is what Merry uses to wound the Witch King at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, allowing Éowyn to kill him. Think about that. Tom Bombadil provided the weapon that would ultimately help destroy the Witch King. Was this just coincidence? Or did Tom know something? Had he seen these blades during some earlier encounter? Did he understand their significance in a way that only someone who had faced the Witch King could? Tolkien rarely did things by accident. The fact that Tom, who lives right next to the Witch King's Barrow-wights, who has power over them, who provides the weapon that helps kill the Witch King, but who never directly confronts him. All of this suggests a deeper history that Tolkien chose to leave implicit rather than explicit. In the end, whether Tom and the Witch King actually met face to face, we can be certain of this. The Witch King conquered everything around Tom's territory, but left Tom himself alone. This wasn't mercy. The Witch King showed no mercy to anyone. It wasn't oversight. The Witch King was too intelligent and thorough. The only logical explanation is that the Witch King encountered something in or around Tom's domain that made him decide it wasn't worth pursuing. And in a way, that non-confrontation is more powerful than any battle could have been. Tom didn't defeat the Witch King. Tom simply existed in a way that made the Witch King's power irrelevant. That's Tom Bombadil in a nutshell. Not fighting evil, just being so completely himself that evil has no hold on him. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Middle-earth's greatest mysteries, please subscribe for more Tolkien analysis. Leave a like if this theory intrigued you, and tell me in the comments, do you think Tom and the Witch King met? What do you think happened? Take care, and see you in the next one.